Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In this video we just want to show you the main implementation of adding coins, removing coins, changing the balance of coins for the balance of life, the balance of coins, and how to set up all that. So let's just take an example here. For example, game. If you open the game scene, we have something called here Soomla, and we have also something called game handler. And notice here, we covered the UI section, and you have a better understanding how to design a menu similar to this. So if you open the main UI panel here, we have action. For example, the first action here that we have is for win coins. So we're just gonna call a function called win coins. So this win coins function is a function here inside the game handler. So we have here something called game handler, and inside this game handler you're just gonna handle everything internally inside your game. So if you have, for example, you need to change the number of coins, you have a game logic you want to execute, you could do it inside the game handler. So inside the game handler, we have different methods. One method for increasing the number of coins, one for removing coins, one for adding life, removing life, increase level, decrease level, and so forth. So here inside this game handler, if you open the script, we have all the functionalities related to the game. So here, for example, we have a function that add a new life to the user. Here we have to decrement the number of lives. Here we have to win the new coin, lose coins. Here we have win level, lose level, reset level, and so forth. These are the all the functions that we are talking about here. So if you open the first button here, which is for adding coin, double click on it, you're just gonna see we have a button, and it's a UI button, and we have attached here a new script, a new game handler to it. So all what you have to do if you want to work with this, you have to go here and say we want to run this on runtime, and here we need to choose the game handler. So if you search here, we have game handler here, which contains the script that we are talking about. So here we go function and we choose game handler, and we call that function the public void method, and we choose it from here. So win coins. So yeah, we're just gonna call this method once we click on this button. So let's go to the script and show you what do we mean by win coins. So here's our win coins. We're just gonna call this method, and this method gonna play a sound using the AudioContorller that we explained in the previous videos, and we gonna use the instance, singleton instance, and play audio once at the one-shot layer. And here we're just gonna give it the positive audio, which is a parameter inside the game handler. After that, we're just gonna increment the store by incrementing the number of coins using the store inventory. So all the time when you wanna increment the number of coins, you're just gonna call something called StoreInventory.give item. So in order to call the store inventory, you have to call and initialize Soomla, and that's why we have here store inventory. We just give it item, and then we just select the item that we need increment the balance of it. So in this case, the balance that we're talking about is coins, so I have to get the item ID of coins and increment it by a given value here, 1. So every time we just gonna call this function, we're just gonna increment the number of coins by using this function here, store inventory give item, the item ID, and the number of the value that of increment. You can increment by 10, by 20, or by 1, as we're gonna see here, but it must be an integer value, as you can see here. In order to decrease the balance of a certain virtual item in the store, we have to use something called take item. So I give it the same thing, I give it the ID, and then I give it the value that I want to decrement. So here, when you press on the add coins button, just gonna increment the balance by 1, and here once you decrement the balance, you're just gonna decrement the balance by 1. But where do we change the UI? So here, for example, if you click play inside the in-game store, and you're just gonna click play. Alright, if you click add coin, notice here we're not gonna nothing gonna happen, only we play the sound. But if you click play again, nothing gonna happen, because there's a big difference here between the game and in-store game. Game here we have a flow. So in order to start the game, you cannot go to the game directly. You have to start the Soomla in the main scene, and then you move on to the game scene, and you can then work with the store inventory, because we initialize the store inventory here inside the main. So once we do that, we go main, for example, and you click play. All right, you click play in the main, and we initialize Soomla on the main on the main scene. And then when you go start, we're just gonna call the game scene here. So we are right now inside the game scene. So because we are in the game scene, you can click add coins, and you can see here we can increment the number of coins, because there is an event attached to this change. So where do we have this event? If you go to the game, we have here inside the game, we have something called Soomla initializer. We have also here Soomla scene handler. If you go to the main scene, we got the same thing. We got here Soomla initializer, we got Soomla scene handler, and also here we have other components here. For example, you got something called store. All right, and also here we got a store controller, and inside the store controller we have something called here store controller script. And this store controller script, we're just gonna control the UI change inside the game. So if you click here and open the store controller, let me just open it. So if you open the store controller, you're just gonna see this is the way that we control the store. We control everything inside the store. So if you scroll a little bit down, you're just gonna see here we have different properties, different regions, and also here we have a start method. So on a start method, we're just gonna check if Soomla store is initialized. If Soomla store is initialized, we're just gonna update the balance label, and we're just gonna also initialize store items. In awake method, which is a singleton, we're just gonna execute the following here. We're just gonna make a symbol singleton. In the enable method here, once we enable in the flow of the Mindizor project, we call enable after awake method. So here we need to register events. So these events must be registered inside your scene in order to be able to change the UI for in a certain function. So here inside enable, we register events. We have a function called register events, and inside this register events, we're just gonna call this function, and here we're just gonna initialize all the store events, so including on item purchased, on item purchase started, on item purchased, on market item refreshed, on market item refresh finished, on restore transaction started, on market purchase started, on market purchase cancelled. We're just gonna call a function here. Also we have on market purchase. All right, we have also functions here like when the good balance changed. So for example here, once we change the balance, we change the inventory item, and by giving additional balance using, for example, the give item or take item method for the store item, we're just gonna call this method. All right, so this method must be registered before you enter the scene, and that's why when we went directly to the game scene and launched the scene without initializing the store, we got a problem. We didn't update the UI, and that's because we have to register these events before we go to that scene. And this is the main difference here between the game and the game in the store. Here, for example, if we go to the game in the store and you just launch it, you're just gonna get something like that. So let me just show you what I got here. Yeah, so we're here. If we go add coins, notice here it works because we have here a store inside this game. So if you go menu, we got something called store here. So this store got something called StoreController, and that's why inside the StoreController we are registering all these events, and that's why they are reflected in the UI. So let's just back to the track here. Once we go here, register events, we're just gonna call this function once the balance change. Once we change the balance of the store inventory. So we're just gonna call this function called update item view. So this is a function here inside this method, update item view. So if you search for it, you're just gonna find this function here. So let me just show you that function. All right, just a second. Yeah, here. So we got this function, and this function is executed once we update the balance of the different components inside the game. So once we update the balance of the life or coins, we're just gonna call this. Any of the store items, once you update its balance, we're just gonna call this function here inside the store. So once we call this function, we just gonna get an argument for the item that has been updated. So here we need to get the virtual store item view, and the virtual store item view is just a game object, or let me say this, it's the selected item view for this virtual item. So what do we mean by item view? If we go here inside this game in store here, and you go open menu, you got something called store here. So if you enable the store, you have many things here. So if you open this, you have something called items containers. So if you open the item containers, we have two things. We have the first thing called currency bags scroll banner, and we have another thing here called goods scroll banner. So if you go open the goods scroll banner, which is basically a scroll rect like the one that we did before, and here we have a wrapper known as goods container, and we got here a horizontal layout group, and if you open it, we just got something here called virtual store item. So inside the virtual store item, we have a script actually here inside the virtual store item. Each of this virtual store item, which is basically this rectangle here, this is what do we mean by virtual store item. So if you open the virtual store item, every virtual store item got many parameters. So these are the parameters associated with the virtual store item. We got a class here inside the script representing this virtual store item. So if you go here and you go to the store, we got something called virtual store item. If you open this script, we have some constants related to this virtual store item. We have also some protective variables related to this virtual store item. And notice here, this is just normal class, and we are using here Unity Engine UI, and we're using Soomla Store, and we're using system globalization in case you want to make this application to be multilingual. You could use many free plugins on the asset store to achieve that. But right now, I just want to explain this virtual store item in the next video to understand why do we need this virtual store item side, the update item view. So we're using here a separate view for each of the items, to represent its view. So it's some kind of separation between layers. So we have the model layer, which is the virtual good item, and also we have the view the view layer, which we represent the data of the virtual good item in a representation using UI engine components like we have label, we have image. So we're just gonna explore together in the next video what do we mean by the virtual store item and how to use it in order to represent the different store items inside our game. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next lesson.